Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to sort of review the Ayaneo Pocket Micro, and then we're going to talk about Ayaneo as a company. The Ayaneo Pocket Micro is in at least a few people's hands now. A few that ordered early bird and got there quickly, and so there's a few hundred or less out in the wild. Like all of Ayaneo's releases, this goes to Indiegogo first and then their website way afterwards. This device was actually first announced back in May, and it started shipping in September. We'll talk about why that's important a little bit later on. So for those of you that want the quick and dirty as to why this handheld might be special, well, it has a 3.5-inch 3:2 aspect ratio screen, and it is actually 960 by 640 resolution. So it makes it a perfect 4x scale for Game Boy Advance games. Honestly, that is really the biggest selling point here. The 3:2 screen is something that we don't see a lot of in this hobby, for whatever reason. And when we do, it's in handhelds that just don't even have the power to run Game Boy Advance games. For example, the Powkiddy V10, which struggles using MGBA, so you kind of have to use GPSP as a core in RetroArch to run Game Boy Advance, and that isn't great all the time. But it also misses Wi-Fi and other features and things like that, so we just don't get a lot of 3:2 aspect ratio devices. This is a beautiful screen, and it has the hardware to go with it, so it's definitely the best part about this device. Now, Ayaneo took the premium approach here and said we're going to give you a Game Boy Advance handheld using our usual premium style. It's going to cost $189 on their early bird in Indiegogo, or $219 when it goes to their website. And it's modeled after the Game Boy Micro. That's what they said. Now, they also gave us 6 gigabytes of RAM, at least, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, a G99 processor, which can actually run some GameCube and PlayStation 2 if you wanted to, and it has a metal shell, and there, you have a premium Game Boy Advance experience. Now, personally, before receiving this, I put it in the same boat as an analog pocket. It would be a very premium niche experience for those that want it. Not going to be for everybody, but might be for nobody at the end of this video. So fans of the channel know I love Game Boy Advance. You see it a lot on my channel. I do a lot of ROM hacks for Pokemon and Fire Emblem and all that sort of thing. It is my favorite system to emulate. It is my favorite system. This device was on my top for this year, my most anticipated, and I've shared that so many different times throughout the year. Keep that in mind as we go through today's video because it's a sad one. But first, let's talk all about the handheld and what it actually has and what's inside. So starting with the D-pad and controls, and they're actually pretty great. The D-pad is a loose D-pad. It's not tight or stiff, and that's what I like personally. In-game, it feels great, and for the types of games that I play, even for fighting games, Hadoukens were pretty easy to pull off if you're looking for that, but overall I'm actually really happy with the D-pad. It is just a good D-pad overall. On the buttons end, they're a bit closer than I would have liked, but they've actually been no concern in games. Honestly, I really have no negatives when it comes to either the D-pad or the buttons. The buttons have nice travel, they feel good, and everything's fine. The biggest issue with the controls is these damn sticks. So here's the thing, this device is modeled after a Game Boy Micro, in their words, and it has a 3:2 aspect ratio. Great for Game Boy Advance, really the only reason you would buy this. And so we don't need these sticks at all. But they decided to put a G99 processor in here, and that's decently powerful, and it can play Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast, and then some GameCube and PlayStation 2, and so on. And I guess they were like, well, now we have to give them sticks to play all those systems. But the problem is, those sticks go against everything this handheld was designed for. You wanted a Game Boy Micro, make a Game Boy Micro. We don't need the sticks. And in all honesty, who is buying this for anything except for Game Boy Advance? Nobody should be. There is no reason to purchase this over any other device in the competition for anything. The only reason you would buy this is Game Boy Advance. Or at least you would have. So why would you include the tallest sticks that you could find, so immediately removing the pocketability of this? They stick out, they get in the way when you're trying to use the D-pad and buttons, you can feel your thumb hitting them at certain angles, and that's not great for a device like this in my eyes, and it's really supposed to just be a premium Game Boy Advance experience. You had a great idea in your mind. Go through with it. Why are you scared about not including sticks? You don't sell enough handhelds for it to matter about you including sticks or not. The people that want this device are buying it for Game Boy Advance. We don't need sticks. Now look, if you want to buy this, you can pop off the caps, you can cut the poles for the sticks, you can try and open the entire thing and remove the sticks completely. You can do all that sort of modding and all of that sort of thing if you wanted to completely destroy this and make it your own. But it's just weird that they decided to do all of this when it just didn't need to exist. Especially when you consider that these things on the bottom are buttons for start, select, Ayaneo sidebar, and then exit or back or something, I think. It's sort of annoying to use in all honesty, and if you didn't have the sticks, you could have put all of those on the front of the device. The speakers are down firing as well, which also could have been on the front of the device. But here's the thing with Ayaneo speakers, and this device is the same. They are not very good at doing speakers. For whatever reason, over all of the devices that Ayaneo makes, they just can't figure out speakers and positioning, and they're pretty unfortunate here. Have a listen. There's a few other concerns and issues on my part. There is no headphone jack, nor can you use a USB-C to 3.5mm adapter, so you can only do speakers or Bluetooth headphones. And unless you find that magical set of Bluetooth headphones without latency, you're going to have latency because it's Android. I do not in fact have those magical headphones. Battery life on here is not very good either. There is a 2600 milliamp hour battery inside, and it is not super great for battery, even for Game Boy Advance. I was able to see a 100% to 0% battery drain of just 5 hours playing Game Boy Advance. That is with battery saving mode on and 100% brightness, and there's no fan enabled, so it gets worse. But with less brightness, you could see maybe an hour or two more, if I had to guess. But here's the thing about those numbers and battery saving mode. It can't play Game Boy Advance games at full speed in that mode using MGBA. Now, I don't mean all Game Boy Advance games, of course. There is a few harder to run Game Boy Advance games. My favorite being Final Fantasy VI. And the intro is a good test because I always use it to see if a system can run Game Boy Advance. So have a quick listen. Now, did you hear all of that stuttering and crackling? And yeah, that is battery saving mode causing that. If you watched my Powkitty V10 review, you'll recall that I showed the exact same thing, and it is the same there too. So battery saving mode on this device is kind of on par with an RK3326 in power in this scenario. So you can't reliably use it for Game Boy Advance if you're using MGBA, which is the best core to use. And with a device like this, it's really the entire reason to use it. Otherwise, you would just buy a Powkitty V10 for $40 and just use GPSP. There's no other reason. But do you know what helps with devices that have bad battery life? Power banks. And not just any power banks, but power banks from Ugreen, because they're awesome. They sell robot chargers. Who does that? It's cool. Ugreen is today's video sponsor, and their power banks are pretty cool, which is weird to say about a power bank. This Ugreen Nexo 20,000 milliamp hour 130 watt power bank has a 100 watt super fast charging port so you can quickly charge up your phone or laptop. It gets the iPhone 15 to 60% in 30 minutes and all of that quickness. But for us retro handhelds focused people, there is a nice USB-A port too, so your RG35XX SP doesn't blow up, and there's still even another port. There's ports everywhere. It has 20,000 milliamp hours of storage that is still airline approved, and it just means that you can charge devices to full multiple times, like an iPhone 15 4 times for you Apple fans. But the coolest part about these is the display. Yeah, that's a display, and it shows you a ton of information like battery power, remaining charge time, input and output power, and voltage, and so much more. You want to know all about charging? This is it. Check out my description for a link to these, as well as Ugreen's awesome lineup of products. Alright, so we're back on the device now, and the good part about the Micro is that Game Boy Advance games actually look absolutely fantastic on this display. It is a very, very good IPS panel, and at a nice 4x scale, GBA is just beautiful on here. I was recently told that I should be more like Digital Foundry and do graphs and numbers and do all sorts of spectrums and charts and things like that to show you how good of a display it is, instead of just telling you and showing you comparisons of how nice it is. So I really took that to heart, and I made a picture of my in-depth research on this topic. This is a really nice display. I spent a lot of time on this research. I hope it helps. All kidding aside, that is not my niche, that is not my content, that is not the things that I like to do. Numbers bore me, graphs bore me. Those are the types of videos that I just skip through because I don't care about them and I'm not going to make content like that. But, if you person there, see a gap in what reviewers are covering, I would suggest making your videos. If you want to see that kind of stuff, start a channel, make those types of videos. If you see those gaps, do it. I did it. The whole reason the channel exists is because I saw gaps in what reviewers were doing. And so here I am. You can do it too. All you need is a phone. I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. I have a light, 2 lights. That's it. So no reason you can't do it either. If you see a gap, make those videos. Now, the device itself actually feels pretty great to hold, which you wouldn't expect from a blocky metal handheld, but it is actually very comfy. If I was to actually use it daily, like I planned, I would remove the sticks and just be fine with the rest, because here's the thing, I actually do quite like this handheld. Quite a bit, even despite the negatives, which I'm kind of glossing over in my head. And don't take this to be some sort of recommendation, because it isn't, and we're going to talk about that now, but my lizard brain actually really likes this handheld. And I would have liked it a lot more if it came out in May, as opposed to September. So here's the part of the video on why I can't recommend this handheld, and why it's Ayaneo's fault for doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over again, to the point where I'm just tired of it and I have to rant. And so the rest of this video is going to be a rant. If you don't like my rants, then you can just exit now. My final review on this is, it's fine, but there are other options, and we're going to talk about that now. So again, if you don't like my rants and you want to leave, go ahead. I have rewritten this rant part section so many times now that I'm just going with what I have, and if you get offended, it's too bad. Ayaneo's release schedule sucks. It sucks. There's no other nice way to put this. It sucks. How do you announce a device in May and ship in September? No other company does that. And you've done this now so many times that it kills your handhelds. It killed your Pocket Air. It's killing the Micro. It's going to kill your Evo probably. It's going to continue killing your devices until you figure out a way to announce and release a handheld in quick succession like every other company does it. Anbernic announces a device and a week later you can order it. Retroid announces a device and 3 to 4 weeks later you can order it. And it ships usually within that first month. AYN is pretty much the exact same. Asus, a large company like Asus, announced and released the Asus ROG Ally X. In the time that this went from announcement to ship, you are not better than Asus, you are not bigger than Asus. How in the world does this happen to you? But you know what the best part about all of that is? When all of those companies announce and release a device, no other company comes in and swoops in and kills their devices. There's no time to. You can't do that. But when you announce a device in May and you ship in September, guess what happens? To put that in perspective, there were 5 Anbernic releases in the time for when this was announced to when it was shipped. 5, I counted. And then 1 Retroid Pocket Mini. And that is the important one that completely kills this. And the Mini was announced and shipped within a month. Why can everybody else do it, but Ayaneo can't? Now you might be thinking, well, why does that matter? None of that matters. Who cares when they announce and ship devices? Well, the problem is, when you take so long to do these things, other companies swoop in and they just kill it. Because right now, if I were to tell you right now, You could buy this or a Retroid Pocket Mini. Which would you purchase? They're the same price. And hold that in your thought for a little bit later on when I show you a little bit more information and help you decide on both of them. But here's the thing, it is a pattern with them. It happened with the Ayaneo Pocket Air. Not sure if a lot of you remember, but the Odin 2 completely killed that. And I have it right here. The Pocket Air was announced in March of 2023. It started shipping or went on sale in September. March to September. The Odin 2 was announced in August and then started shipping in October, from what I remember. Killed it. Just killed it. There was nobody that was going to buy a Dimensity 1200 chip when the Odin 2 was coming out with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 at $299 US. And so it killed it. The Pocket S came and went. The Pocket DMG is releasing to zero marketing and don't even know what's happening there. The Pocket Evo is coming up soon. Do you know who we haven't heard from in a little bit? AYN. It's coming up. If I had to do some napkin math, it is coming up right around the time where AYN would start announcing or teasing some sort of device. And the Evo is not shipping until November. Is it going to happen again? Probably. So why? Look, the point being, if this would have released in May, when it was announced, they did an announcement and started shipping in a month and all that sort of thing, we would have had 4 to 5 months of a community being built around this handheld, a following being built around this handheld, people actually trying to use it and playing with it, setting up guides, setting up tips, tricks, all of that sort of thing. You would have some sort of community in a way that when Retroid announces their Pocket Mini in September, you have to actually make a decision at that point because you have it in your hands to say, do I sell this and get a Pocket Mini, or do I just stick with this and make that decision? But instead, what happens is this is shipping at the same time that the Retroid Pocket Mini is shipping, and nobody in their right mind would purchase this over a Retroid Pocket Mini. There is zero reason to do so, and I'm going to show you that in a second. There was zero competition for this device back in May, and Ayaneo can continually blame reviewers for bad reviews as much as they want, but it is Ayaneo killing their devices. You can keep making little short lists of creators that you're going to send devices to and keep making it a small list and all that sort of thing, but it's all on you. And so my biggest takeaway from this is that the Mini actually plays and shows Game Boy Advance games better than the Ayaneo Pocket Micro. A device that isn't even trying to go for a premium Game Boy Advance experience is the premium Game Boy Advance experience over the device that was made for that specific purpose. And it's wild. I can't even say that they're different form factors because they're not. They are both similarly priced, similarly sized. The only difference is that one completely obliterates the other in every single spec category and even in real life. This is once again the Pocket Air versus Odin 2 scenario, and insert shocked Pikachu face right now. But this time it bothered me, because this time I was anticipating this device. This time I was in Ayaneo's corner. I actually ordered this off of Indiegogo. I was ready to go there. I woke up right to order this. I was in their corner, ready to fight. I was like, I know I'm overpaying for this. I know that this is going to be a premium Game Boy Advance experience that is niche. I know what I am getting here and I know what I want. So imagine my disappointment when this arrives the same week that the Mini arrives and this wasn't the premium Game Boy Advance experience over another company that wasn't even trying to do that. Now, don't get confused. There's going to be some people that think there is no way these two are comparable, but yeah, they are. Same price, same size, same form factor. Spec-wise, completely different, and the reason is one company actually put effort in, the other one kind of didn't. So if you have $200 US and you have a choice of the Micro or Mini, you have to pick one. They're in competition. The Analog Pocket is a premium niche experience. It has zero competition for what it does. There are a lot of people that compare it to an FPGBC, but if you've ever held both devices, if you've ever looked at the screen on both devices, if you've ever looked at the speakers on both devices, if you ever looked at what the Analog Pocket can play compared to the FPGBC, there is zero competition there. That is a product that is premium in every way, shape, or form. Premium price tag, premium feeling, premium actual device. in every way, shape, or form. And you can hate their scalping practices, you can hate all of that. The actual physical product of an analog pocket has no competition. It is premium in a lot of different ways. That is not this. You cannot point to anything like that on the Micro unless you completely ignore that the Mini exists. And at that point, you're not listening. The Mini is cheaper, has a better D-pad, better and shorter sticks, a better screen for Game Boy Advance, better battery, much better speakers, better operating system, better performance, better features, and so much more. It is an absolute slaughter in comparison. The Mini is the premium Game Boy Advance experience to the Micro, and that is telling. And look, this isn't even meant to be a hit piece here, although it usually does come across that way in my videos because I have an emotional side to my videos. I'm not just reading specs off of a list and just monotone voice. I like to get invested in these handhelds because I like these handhelds. I like playing games on them. I have an emotional side in these videos. But all of this is completely factual. I even made a chart for you to look at. There is not one single thing that the Pocket Micro does better than the Retroid Pocket Mini, either on paper or in reality. And that is coming from somebody who has, for some stupid reason, really likes the Micro still. And I can't find a single reason to use it or recommend it over the competition. And trust me, I've been trying to figure out one reason to recommend this to anybody. I can't tell you this is good for Game Boy Advance or a best choice for Game Boy Advance because it isn't. I can't tell you it's the best metal handheld because it isn't. I don't know what to point you towards to be like, for $200 you should buy this, because there's no reason in my mind for me to tell you to do so. It would be disingenuous of me to do so. I would be awful as a reviewer to recommend this over the competition. I think the interesting part about all of this is if you would have sent me this device a month ago, before the Mini even arrived, likely would have had a positive review on it because I didn't have the Mini in my hands. But that was pre-consumers getting it. That would have been reviewers getting it. And so it becomes a whole different scenario. And I actually have a more relevant review now because I am in this scenario where normal people would be in of, hey, these are starting to get in people's hands, starting to see reviews of them. I need to make a decision, Mini or Micro. That's a consumer's thought right now, is what do I buy if I'm looking for Game Boy Advance? And the answer is, it's not this. And look, if you want to boil this down to Joey likes the Mini better because you have no actual remaining thoughts in your head, then go right ahead. But I think most people know watching this video, that is not exactly what I'm saying here. What I'm trying to say here is Ayaneo needs to do better because it is now two great devices that they've released that they've killed because of them and not because of any other factor, because they keep doing the same thing over and over and over without changing it. And if you want to sell more than 200 of a device, maybe you should make some changes. Maybe we can build a community around handhelds like this that are actually good when there's no other competition around for a few months, and then build up some sort of following to make them interested in what you're doing. But at this point, they aren't doing that. So that is what I'm trying to say in this video. And what I'm trying to get the point across to Ayaneo is they need to do a lot better. So again, let me repeat this for the Ayaneo fans. I'm on your side. I like this. But we have to agree here that they are just releasing their handhelds into nothingness. They are killing them. And for somebody who likes this device, that's not good to see. So this review, or whatever you want to call it, hurts for a different reason than most of my negative reviews do, because this is the device I actually like, and it's negative for a whole bunch of other reasons. Can't recommend it, not going to recommend it over the Mini, even for Game Boy Advance. There is no reason to do so. It is not as good as the Mini for even Game Boy Advance, for comfort, for everything. There is not a single thing I can point to purchase this over the Mini, unfortunately. People won't like this video. I don't sugarcoat things. That is just how I do. I don't know how else to make these videos without doing it the way that I do it. But such is life. If you want to hate me for this, go right ahead. But the one thing that I want to get across to Ayaneo is just hopefully take something away from this video to do better next time. Because the one thing that I like to see is competition. But the one thing that matters in that is you have to actually be competitive. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about retro handhelds like this. Support me on Patreon if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.